Welcome back to Earth Station Trek, a show where we trek from the early days on NBC to the future on Paramount Plus and everywhere in between. I'm Charles Kelso, and it's my privilege to introduce the Earth Station Trek crew: Keith Johnson,
Working.
Alan Seiler,
I am a robot.
and Veronica Dashel.
Hi.
And welcome back, everybody. I think it's kind of fitting that we're all kind of fighting technical difficulties this week.
Yeah. Right.
Because we're going to be revisiting the topic of AI in the present day, also into the future and into the Star Trek future. But before we get into that, I've got a little bit of news.
Cool.
Now, several sites have been reporting this week, and I don't know, I haven't followed the bread trail back to see where this originated from, but that Paramount is looking to now, after 10 years of teasing various Star Trek 4 with the Kelvin cast stories, that they're going to move on from the Kelvin cast and move on to something else. What do we think? Does anybody care about this?
Nope, not a bit.
I would prefer they go back to the OS universe movies, but I have enjoyed the Kelvinverse movies, and I would honestly rather they move on to the OS with a new crew than try to bring, if they're not going to bring the old crew back. And what I had also read as well, they were thinking the old crew was getting a little long in the tooth. They were demanding more money,
which is dumb.
I know.
Have you guys seen a Star Trek movie before?
I know, right?
They get older every time.
Isn't that crazy? And I know, of course, some of them, like Chris Pine and Zoe Saldana, especially, demand a lot of money. So I just say, just let it lie and go back to OS movies.
Right.
I think the youngest star of a Star Trek movie during the original run was like 45.
Exactly.
Good for Anton Yelchin. Rest of him. He was a baby in that series, but you're right.
But I mean, as far as the original series crew, which I guess the motion picture era would be the sort of the age that this cast would be now.
Yeah,
was the youngest that they ever were in the movies, and then you transition from that to Patrick Stewart being the lead actor in the Star Trek movies.
Well, the difference there, of course, is that the originals were playing characters that had been in service for a long time, and the Chris Pine group are playing characters that are at the beginning of their journey. So the older they get, the less.
I mean, if you brought them back, they wouldn't be. They would just be older versions of those characters we saw that a lot of people grew up with.
Yeah,
well, I understand that. I'm just saying that there was a history with the others that there isn't as much with these.
Sure. Yes. Understood.
Yeah. There's and I need to publish, I think it's a comic book resources article based on what you just said, Alan, that talked about why the movies never really caught on as much as they perhaps wanted, because it's hard to care. It wasn't even putting them down, but it was hard to form an attachment with people you see every few years in a movie when the others you saw in a TV show over and over and over again. That's what makes movies kind of difficult. Yeah, and I think that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, just come up with an idea for a Star Trek movie.
Right.
Like Paramount Pictures can't come up with an idea for a Star Trek movie for a decade now.
Well, Simon Pegg, I read recently, Simon Pegg has submitted at least one or two story ideas. But to what you had said when you started, Charles, they were like, "Oh yeah, it's a good idea. We'll look at that." And then he's like, "Then I don't hear anything forever."
Right.
Yeah. So, I guess the only good thing, if you got to make something good out of this, is David Ellison, now running Skydance, is a huge Star Trek fan, which means he ain't going to let the property die. But what he's going to do with it, I don't know.
Right. All right. Well, Keith, do you have some This Week in Trek this week?
I do. Let's run through this real quick. I thought this was really relevant given what we had talked about last week with that awesome Star Trek podcast about Khan.
Right.
On November the 9th, 1981, and this is also a really big deal for Star Trek. In 1981, filming began on The Wrath of Khan.
Okay.
Yeah. Really big deal because, as you know, Star Trek, the motion picture, was considered a failure, or it was considered not a success as much as they wanted by a lot of people. I remember reading even DeForest Kelley said nobody liked that movie about the motion picture. And so it was a big deal coming in at Wrath of Khan. They got, was it Harv Bennett to do that, who didn't have a lot of Star Trek experience. And there was some griping. Gene Roddenberry, for example, is like, how do you bring somebody in who doesn't know Star Trek like I know it? And we end up with the Wrath of Khan. And then, of course, there's the jokes like, hey, Mr. Rourke is coming back, for those old enough to remember Mr. Rourke.
Right.
I remember that. It was somewhat a shot in the dark, honestly, that movie. People didn't know, and wow.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think the Star Trek motion picture was very financially successful, but creatively it was not. I think universally people noticed the problems that film had.
Yeah.
Although
I like it.
Love it.
I love it too. It's actually my favorite of the OS movies is actually The Search for Spock, but that's a whole other story. Just because this has become famous, I have to mention this one. November the 9th, 1993 was first day of filming on the infamous episode Sub Rosa of TNG.
Okay.
And we all know that that's Beverly and the Ghost.
Yeah, but I think that kind of like the motion picture has been reevaluated in recent years. I think people are more favorable to it than they used to be.
Really?
Mhm.
You mean it's more than just a joke?
Yeah, I think people genuinely enjoy that. And I think I enjoyed it more when we revisited it for our podcast.
Yeah, that's true.
I love it.
Mhm.
I always have from the very beginning.
Okay.
Yeah, it's bold. Let's say that it's bold. I'll never forget that thing when Picard walks into Beverly's room, and let's just say she's dreaming. Another one, the 10th of November, 1966. This is one's original series, always at the top of the list or near the top of the list. Also established the Kirk character of innovation, and that is the Corbomite maneuver.
Oh, I love the Corbomite maneuver.
Yes. Awesome. You know that one, Veronica, right?
Probably, but
You have to. You've lived with me for 15 years. It's one of my favorite episodes. Or Baylock.
okay,
You
yes.
have 4 minutes remaining.
Hey, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. That established one of Kirk's characteristics was being able to bluff and innovate, and it's just one of my favorite things of all time. The way he did that, it's a great episode. Little
Oh,
Ronnie
that's
Howard.
the New Year's episode.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a great one. Okay, and let's go on. Let's see here. This one I wanted to mention also, November 10th, 1967, because we just lost them. The original series episode Metamorphosis airs.
Also a great one. Another one of my favorites.
Directed by the late, great Ralph Sinesky. And it's one of those I've said many times, the older you get, so there are certain shows. I have liked all Star Trek. I was never too young for Star Trek, but you certainly pull more out of it the older you get. And that's one of those episodes I pull more out of Metamorphosis.
And that's one that really benefited from the digital remastering.
Yeah.
Really brought out the beauty of those frames.
Right. Yeah, I know, Charles, you mentioned it's one of the best looking Star Trek episodes. And you're right. It's absolutely gorgeous. Ralph Sinesky, that man knew how to direct. That's for darn sure. All right. 11th of November, Veterans Day, or Armistice Day, as it used to be called. 2007, filming began on Star Trek 2009.
Okay.
And that was 18 years ago. Filming began on that movie.
Wow.
That is wild. Nobody knew what was coming with that one. And as Alan and we just discussed, who knows what they're going to go with in the future, because we don't know what the future of the franchise is.
True.
Yeah. And the last two I want to mention, this is relevant given what we're talking about. 1992, 14th of November was the premiere of the TNG episode, The Quality of Life.
Okay.
It's the one with the exocomps. And the one where Data was willing to sacrifice Commander Riker's life because he thought the exocomps were alive, and value is life. Great episode.
Mm-hmm. That's
really
a good one.
Yeah, really fun one. And then the last one, also in reference to our guy, on the 15th of November, 1966, was the treatment of the original series episode, This Side of Paradise.
Okay.
Directed by Ralph Sinesky.
That's right.
And that's the one with the spores where Spock falls in love. Or no, Spock can love. One of my favorites of all time.
Yeah, totally. That's an all-time classic episode.
It is. That's this week in Star Trek history.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, this week. Oh, let's grab some comments.
We're going to say we need we got a few relevant ones.
Cool.
Mark says Star Trek works best as episodic and on TV and for free to watch.
100%.
Agreed.
Yeah, but I think it certainly can work as a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Star Trek can be a lot of things. Certainly that worked in the past, but I don't think we're ever... I'm not sure that we'll get episodic and on TV and for free to watch ever again. I don't think TV works that way.
That is a combination that does not exist anymore.
Yeah, I miss that. And
Mark. Then our buddy Wayne says, at one time I heard some intriguing talk about a reboot, and then it stopped.
Multiple times.
Yes.
Yeah, Wayne, we don't know, because that's the thing. It was the 2009 cast. Then there was talk they were going to go back to that world, but a younger cast with the movies. We don't know.
Yeah. They don't know.
They don't know. Yeah.
And most importantly, Mark wants to know what Veronica's T-shirt says.
It's
Phoenix.
It's the Phoenix. It's one of the Lower Decks episode T-shirts from when they went to that planet. So it says faster than light for 300 years, and the Phoenix, Bozeman, Montana, April 5th, 2363.
I think we own between us 58 Lower Decks T-shirts,
Wow.
and that's not an exaggeration because they did one for every episode, plus a bonus every year, plus the Strange New Worlds crossover episode T-shirts.
And Charles, what does your T-shirt say?
Star Wars.
You know, sorry to say that where we're going, I don't think we're going to get the Phoenix warp chest in the Star Trek timeline.
Right after World War III, and we're right on track, I think.
Yeah, and Khan's up eating poutine and waffles right now, so we got to get him to grow up.
That's right.
God.
Where are we?
We're about to start our topic.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So we talked about it before of AI and Star Trek. Before we had an expert on. Veronica, who did we have on before?
Cheryl Hayes.
Okay, and who was Cheryl Hayes?
Cheryl was the director of the School of Data Science and Analytics
At Kennesaw State University.
Yes.
Yeah, and so we thought, Keith, you suggested we revisit this with more of a specific Star Trek look at AI and Star Trek and where we are in AI now. So why don't you kick it off?
Yeah, it was funny. I work in IT, and I've been working. My degree is electrical engineering, and I've been with computers, and I've been with computers and stuff for decades. But I also grew up with corded phones, no TV remote control, black and white televisions, and I remember the advent of the VCR. And so I am in that real. I think most of us are. Alan is there too, I'm sure, because Alan, I know you work with technology and library sciences. We crossed the day when you didn't have this AI, and we are crossing into where you do have this AI. And for example, I don't use AI a lot still. I don't let AI write anything for me. I use it for certain searches. But when we talk about, and so I have some trepidation about AI, but I will tell you why. I do not fear yet Skynet or Colossus or Nomad. I'm not worried about that. But I am worried about AI used in everyday life that's programmed by the wrong people to do the wrong things. I'm not worried about computers coming awake one day and saying humans suck, let's take over. I am worried about some dude putting AI in charge of a nuclear facility and the AI program is done badly. And so in thinking about that and kind of avoiding thinking about the evil AI that science fiction is always talking about, I want to know, like, what would AI actually be like in the future that you couldn't avoid? In the future, where would AI be integrated? Because it's getting integrated now. We're not going to be able to avoid it.
So my main problem, one of my main problems with AI, it is 100% a buzzword. None of this is AI. None of this is AI. It is large language models and data programming. It's because there is no artificial intelligence. It's literally, it's been programmed with this stuff because, like, for example, I have to use AI in one of my classes because all the code is in an old version of the programming language, and we're like 6 ahead of what all is in the class. So I use it to help me translate because I don't know this code. I'm learning this code.
And just for reference, what are you going to school for?
I'm going to school for a master's in information technology. But even this, that's specifically been programmed with all the stuff, and every time you use it, it's learning. It still like forgets like literally what it just learned and what it told you to do with the code a few minutes ago, and it tells you to do something different, and then it breaks everything. And I'm just like, you literally just told me this, and then you change it to this, and now it's broken when it wasn't broken before. So
Veronica, I was going to actually make a note to ask you that, as you just said, the difference between what we call AI and what you're talking about, large language models, and what most people think of, which is something that's approaching self-awareness and self-thinking, that's they're not even the same, right?
I mean, so from my understanding is the way that a lot of what is AI in movies and TV shows and whatnot is large language programs developing it somehow, magically, basically.
And what's a large language program versus AI?
I mean, it's literally, it doesn't think for itself. It takes just literally what it's learned and has no original thoughts. So it can only, you ask it a question. If it doesn't know the answer, I will say sometimes it will make it up about other stuff, and and it won't.
Yeah.
So,
There was a lawyer that ran into that problem.
Yeah.
Using AI to research and cite relevant cases, and the AI just made up relevant cases for him, and he submitted it to court. And you get in trouble for that, actually, for having fake cases in your lawsuit.
Wow.
So having no original thought and
Mhm.
only regurgitating the things that it has been fed. So it's just like a human.
Kind of. Yeah.
No, I don't think it's just like a human, though.
No,
But
I'm
I feel
making
like-
a joke.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
A lot of humans do that.
That is true.
Sure.
That is true.
Yeah, I think the
Unfortunately.
difference, and it was Ted Chiang that made the point, I think, that, like, for instance, if I say I love you, it's not an original thing to say. I'm saying something that I've heard before, but I'm saying it with a reason, whereas AI doesn't. AI can regurgitate the words, but there's no meaning behind it. And we're not at a point yet with machine learning or artificial intelligence where it does. And that's something that in sci-fi you do get to.
Yeah.
There are certainly AIs that have feelings and ones that don't, that we've seen in Star Trek and other science fiction. But it's not saying it as an expression of a feeling. It's just regurgitating the words. So I think that, I'm not picking on you, Alan, but as people have said that, humans do the same thing. You just, all the words you've heard in your life and you repeat them in different orders. But we're doing it to express something that we feel or think, and AI does not, or the language models do not.
When, just an off-topic question, kind of sort of, but when we talk about AI that has no true quote-unquote emotions, does that in any shape, form, or fashion, Veronica, even come close to touching humans who are deemed sociopaths, humans who supposedly don't have emotions? Is that anywhere close to that? I ask that because so many times in science fiction, one of the things that happens is they kind of hint that the AI is kind of a sociopath, as it has no human emotions, but then it goes on and does its stuff.
I feel like sociopaths have emotions, they just ignore them.
Well, but I would add that human beings, regardless of your mental state, have a life experience, and that life experience informs the things that you say and do, and that ChatGPT does not.
That's a good point. And that's why in one of my favorite episodes of all Star Trek dealing with artificial intelligence, The Ultimate Computer, it's why Dr. Daishin, remember, he impressed his own engrams on the computer. He didn't do it from scratch. He basically created kind of Spock even said he has created a duplicate of his own mind. It just operates much, much faster than human. And then, of course, in that case, his neuroses went into the computer as well.
Yeah. Well, I think that you find that a lot, too, in these language models and things, where you've had them before where, Twitter will, in 24 hours, turn Grok into a racist or whatever the case may be. Right. Because it's people are putting themselves and it's learning from us and repeating. I mean, if it's just repeating what we say, humans often aren't the best.
Yeah.
Right.
Humans are terrible.
Yeah. But there are things that AI, if we use that term, AI would be good for. I just 2 weeks ago found myself starting to use AI for the first time ever. Anything approaching with consistency is when I do certain Google searches. And even then, I curate my own searches. Again, like you guys said, it's kind of like it's like getting news and not knowing where the news source comes from, right? Just because Facebook, I don't get my news through Facebook as most people do. Many people do. But if I get a news source, I still want to know if it came from McClatchy or New York Times or BBC or whatever. So I'll use Facebook for some stuff like that. But I was thinking, one of the things I was thinking about this topic is there's kind of things that AI would have to do in the future. For example, it's really cool to talk about Tom Paris and Ortegas and stuff like that. But in real life, even at sublight speed, which is 25% of the speed of light, which is, 30,000 miles a second.
Okay.
You couldn't have a pilot do what the pilots in Star Trek do. You just couldn't. That's just truth, right? I mean, there's not a series that somebody hasn't go, oh man, they say the computer can pilot the ship more than we. And there's a whole discussion about man versus the machine. But in real life, you couldn't have Han Solo or Tom Paris piloting a ship traveling like 30,000 miles a second through an asteroid field. No human will ever be able to do that. So you would have to use AI in a circumstance like that. You would have to give some control to the computer or have the computer interface with humans. I could see, and then think about going at warp. I mean, warp, now you're talking about going millions of miles a second. There's all this weird stuff at 3D space travel. There's all this stuff going on in warp drive that the human mind just does not comprehend, and I don't think ever will. I could see AI being used for a lot of piloting in the future with things like that.
Yeah, but I can see even people in the future trusting the judgment of a human over a computer. You know, whereas a computer may make the calculation of how many people is willing to sacrifice to, you know, potentially save a certain number of other people. It's a math computation, right? Whereas a human may find it, not acceptable to lose anybody.
And Keith, you use the example of an asteroid field,
right?
And two things about that. First of all, they're not going to be going at full, whatever it is, sublight or whatever. They're not going to be going 33 million miles an hour through it. But in a lot of those scenes, usually when we see it in Star Trek, because particularly, they turn the computer off and they hand it over to a human.
Yeah.
And I think that's really like the exact opposite of what we're kind of talking about, that you would give your trust to a computer because the computer can think faster and it can think more accurately, but it doesn't have instincts. And I think it's always telling when they use the human pilot as opposed to relying on the computer pilot.
Booby trap. TNG, Booby Trap, another episode I love. And you're right, Alan, because in that case, Geordi ran the scenario, and the scenario with the computer was exactly 50-50. 50-50. One scenario, they get out, the other scenario, they all die. And Picard sits down and cool as you please navigates them through the thing. But I wonder, 300 years from now, would that happen? Or would the technology be so advanced that they would literally say, Captain Picard, you violated regulations by frankly doing it manually instead of letting the computer do it. I wonder, where will we be 300 years from now?
Yeah, I think. Go ahead.
No,
I was just gonna say, if we are where we are in the Star Trek universe, I don't trust the computer with my life. It's not the most reliable source. But you go ahead with your comments.
Certainly not the holodeck. Right. Come on. I'm not trusting that. Okay, so our buddy Wayne says he's with Keith, resisting using AI, except for that corporation that keeps pushing Copilot down our throat.
Yep.
Oh, I work with that, Wayne, so I hear you, but it's not going away. It's not going away. Yeah.
Eric Watts says, if Elementary Dear Data, which aired in 1988, and Ship in a Bottle 1993 aren't cautionary tales about the dangers of artificial intelligence, then I don't know what is.
Veronica, what are your thoughts about that? Because one thing, like Charles mentioned and Alan mentioned, and Wayne, is there's always, you don't trust the computer. But what if you, to your example, Charles, what if you program the AI to a scenario with, it's like Isaac Asimov's laws of robotics. Would they program the AI to say, don't ever endanger human life? Like, run me the scenario, but you cannot give me a scenario that's going to kill like more than 10% of the crew or something like that. Would you do that?
There have literally been studies where they gave the program instructions and explicitly said, you cannot endanger human life, but this is your mission. It ignored the endangering human life almost every single time.
Really?
Yeah, it was like, I don't remember the exact percentage, but it was more than 70% of the time.
So that means we need better computer programs.
You're saying Star Trek is realistic?
Yes.
Of course it is. And then our last comment, which is pertaining to Keith's point about piloting, Mark says, in most modern airliners these days, the pilot barely touches the controls. The pilot is there mostly for emergency.
That's true, Mark. I remember years ago when the first space shuttle, and how far back does that go? When the first space shuttle was launched, I remember the first space shuttle, the one that was kind of a test. There was two men who were piloting it. And I remember, I forget the guy's name, I should know, but the guy who was the captain of the space shuttle, he said, I'm not really flying the space shuttle a lot. He was kind of there, but it was really computer control and, well, mission control also. But he was kind of there in case something catastrophically happened.
Yes. And
of course, they also mentioned that without advanced computer controls, even back then, the space shuttle is literally a flying brick, they called it, because, it doesn't have the wing surfaces. Yeah, if it doesn't make the first landing, you're screwed. It's not like it can circle around. And so going back a couple of decades, it was a lot of computer control of the space shuttle. And one thing I'm a huge fan of is this, hypersonic vehicles, Mach 5 and above. When you get to those kind of speeds, humans won't be able to fly those planes completely. So
unless you have inertial dampeners from
right, but it's just the reaction time. I mean, when you're hitting the atmosphere at Mach 18, there's nothing that a human can do quickly enough. And see that's, and I know we're almost getting to break time, so we're about to go to break. But before we do that, one thing that if it's providing astronauts or people in high dangerous jobs with tools to do their jobs, I don't have any problem with that. Right. I don't have any problem with using the most sophisticated technology we have. Really, where it's more close to my heart is when it gets to the arts and where AI is turned towards the arts. And
yes, let's talk about that. Yeah.
Oh,
also just
don't get me started.
I'm gonna get you started. I'm gonna get you started.
Yeah, we really got to go there. We really got to go there.
So let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're gonna get into our bias-free opinions of AI in art. So stay right there.
That was a good commercial.
Look at that new ad.
That was good.
So for folks who are on the audio podcast and didn't just see that, Alan, what did we just see?
Wow.
Oh, that's a little ad that I put together for the 2 upcoming books of mine, which would have been out right now, except for a brand new development in the world of Doctor Who. So this is a 2-volume set called Time Flight, which covers the history of Doctor Who from 1960 to right now, till the end of this year. And I say that because I had a little write-up at the end of the book about the next thing happening, which is the miniseries, the 5-episode miniseries about the Sea Devils, which, because of the end of the Disney Plus deal, we just learned last week that BBC One is now going to be airing it this year in December. Screw you, Disney Plus. Not waiting till next year. So now I'm holding off on it so I can write up about that thing, and then it'll be off to the printer.
Awesome. Well, we're looking forward to that.
And guess what didn't happen in that book? I didn't write it with AI.
Oh, really? So, as an author and publisher, do you have any thoughts about AI in your field?
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm in a lot of like author/publisher forums, and it is just littered with, and okay, first of all, let's say that when what we're talking about when we use the term AI, which is the large language model learning platforms, there's a lot of legitimate uses for that. Even as an author, there's a lot of it's a legitimate tool. I use it sometimes for outlining. I use it for research. I use it for a number of things, for editing, for whatever. But you go in these forums, and there's people who think that publishing is going to make them a fast buck, and they literally have AI write a book for them.
Really?
Oh my God, Keith.
Huh.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was that bad.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they're like, I published 20 books on, whatever print on demand service this week. And you're like, but how can you possibly do that? You're just generating slop. You're just churning out crap. Oh, it's so frustrating.
I remember when I was in elementary school, way back when you used to take spelling classes and stuff like that. Remember, you used to have the books where there would be a bunch of words you'd have to learn every week, whatever, 10 or 20 words. And I remember the teachers would do the thing where they would give you like that week's list of words, and it'd just be words, and they would tell you to write a story from those words. And so it might be like, you remember that? It might be like shoe, jelly, cat, coconut, and write a story from that.
Okay. I have a story where I was the AI in this. Okay. This was almost my senior year, so it was early 2000s. And so my teacher gave me this list of words, and I discovered that the structure to a sentence, it was adverb or adjective, noun, adverb, verb. So I took the words that she gave me, which almost always included an adverb, a noun, a verb, an adjective, and I just smushed them together randomly. and she thought I was brilliant and gave me 100, even though they made absolutely no fucking sense. Oops, sorry.
What?
Yes.
Okay.
Charles will have AI scrub that word out, Veronica. You're good.
So, Charles, I know you have thoughts and feelings
I have a lot of,
being a writer and a performer as you are about the way that AI is sort of an invasive like thing in the arts. So I have more stuff to say, but I want you to get your piece in.
Before you respond, Charles, can I frame your response with this question? In the future of Star Trek, could AI get to be where it's at least as sophisticated as the crappy writers that Alan would talk about who don't use AI, or the people like Veronica and I did who just took words and threw them together? So could AI in the future at least be as good as a crappy human writer?
Sure.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think so. But I think the problem with it is, I do too. But and it is because I've tried using it before. I've tried using AI tools. I've tried filling in gaps in scripts when I had to get on stage the next day. And I've gotten on stage and delivered jokes from an AI that didn't land. And
really,
I would much rather, I would never do that again. Because it's one thing to get there and recite something that I wrote and believed in that doesn't land. And it's something else to something that just, it was spat out. You know, right? Like AI for me cuts out the part of the creative process that I like. Which is that I suck at it. And I have to work really hard at everything that I do. And Veronica will tell you there have been so many times when I'm working on something and I just give up and I throw things and I go for a walk and I should have been doing this in the first place. And what am I doing here? And I sit back down and I try and I get it. And then on the occasions where I can get on stage and deliver something that people really like and respond to, I mean, that really means a lot to me. I remember one of the first conventions we ever did, and I think it was at Timegate. And someone just questions in our Q&A afterward and was like, who writes your scripts? And Veronica said, oh, Chuck writes the scripts. And like the crowd applauded. And that was the first time that had ever happened to me. Like,
wow.
And saying that, well, I got it from this website, the ChatGPT spat it out, would not have got me that same feeling, right? Like what I want from it is for me to have accomplished something and for it to mean something to people and to myself, right? So for me, cutting out the me part of it takes out the part of art that I like because the end result isn't really what I'm after. It's the process of getting there. But in Star Trek, I think that they've largely got, and I guess this is a Star Trek podcast. I'm going to bring Star Trek into it a little bit. I mean, largely the prompting is what they do on Star Trek for their entertainment a lot. They will go to the holodeck and just like the crap on YouTube you see where it's Elvis in Star Wars or whatever, you can go to the holodeck and say, I want to see Elvis in Star Wars. And that's something we had touched on it a little bit when we had Penny Beth Lynn on just a few weeks ago, talking about why is there no pop culture from like now to the 24th century. And it could be that a lot of it isn't popular culture anymore. It's a lot of very bespoke, individualized experiences like you have on the holodeck where you go to the holodeck and you request your own adventure and it gives you an interactive adventure and there won't necessarily be 4 million other people who have that same adventure. It's just for you, right? And a lot of AI stuff could be heading in that direction where tonight I want to watch Captain Kirk and played by Elvis having an adventure where he meets Doctor Who, and it's an adventure that the AI spits out just for you or you interact with that no one else sees.
You know what? I hate to say this, but I could see that work. And I could see that to what you're saying. I could see that being done in the future because what you're describing, Charles, is a super sophisticated 3D choose your adventure book. And remember when that cartoon video game Dragonlance or Dragon Age came out? Do you remember that one? And it was the one, it was done by it looked like Disney animators. Dragon Slayer. And remember, you could actually sometimes watch the computer kind of take a second to put the scenario that you chose up. Remember, like you're
staring.
That's it. And what you're describing for the holodeck would be something that would run real time, where you could go in there, like you said. I hate to say this, I could see that work. You go in there, you say something like, "Hey, I want to go on an adventure to slay dragons with Elvis Presley wielding a lightsaber." And you talk and you work. It's almost like improv, and then the AI feeds you the scenario and works with you. I can see that happening. That creativity.
We saw that a little bit in Lower Decks when Boimler went off on the side quest because of the map, and then Vindicta 2 or something.
Yeah, it was the second one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was talking to the NPCs and having his own adventure that wasn't planned, and it was just sort of made it by the computer along the way.
Yeah. But this is the way that Star Trek has interacted with computers almost from the very beginning, because LLMs work on you writing a prompt.
Right.
And you can be as specific as you can possibly be with your prompt, and then it gives you a response. If the response doesn't exactly meet what you're wanting to get, then you modify that prompt by adding something new. You give it more information, and that's exactly what Star Trek does. There's a computer, what is the likelihood of what XYZ, and it gives you a response. If that doesn't cover exactly what you need it to do, then you modify that by giving it more parameters, you give it more context, you give it more specifics to narrow down the response that it gets. So what we're doing now with what we're calling AI is exactly what Star Trek has been doing for decades, the way that they interact with their computers.
Yeah.
But their computers are more sophisticated.
Well, of course.
And then,
well, maybe. I mean, they still try to kill them. At least ours don't have the ability to do that, right? But I mean, and similarly, you could go to like if you're listening to music, you could either queue up something you want to listen to, or you could, I mean, you could potentially say, I want to hear, you know, the hits of Queen sung by Elvis, and the computer would do it, right? Or you could go to the holodeck and go to a concert of whatever. You know, Data would go to the holodeck and play, you know, poker with Isaac Newton and Stephen Hawking and Albert Einstein, right? That's not popular culture necessarily, but it's an experience that he prompted on the holodeck.
Speaking of music, we're in a weird situation right now where AI has progressed to the point where there is currently on the Billboard, I don't know how far it's gotten, top 40, top 20, whatever.
I do know.
What
Let's
position?
listen to a video
I
about
do know because I'm looking into it, because it's not the Billboard country hits. If you're talking about the country song,
no, not that one came out today. This is one that I heard about last week on the pop chart.
Okay, then go right ahead.
Okay, well, I was just going to say that there are now reportedly record labels bidding for a contract with this artist. The artist does not exist. The song does not exist. It was completely generated by AI. It's a popular song. It does all the things that people look for when they listen to the radio, but there's no humanity in it. And the artist, the programmer who put this together, is surprised that she's getting backlash.
The same thing happened with that actress.
There's a country one also that I just learned about today. So you want
the country one?
Know about that one?
The headlines have been running that it's topping the country charts. It's not. It's the download charts, and the numbers were like 3,000 downloads. So basically, if at 99 cents a download, so basically it costs somebody $3,000 to put this song at the top of the country download charts, because no one downloads music anymore, right? Everyone streams everything. But the headlines have been running as if this is the top of the country charts, and it's not.
Well, it's a chart,
right? It's a chart, but it's not a headline to say.
It's you can literally buy yourself to the top of that chart,
right? For $3,000, you can buy yourself to the top of that chart.
Yeah.
But it's a novelty for people, and so the headlines are running with it. But I know you're a musician. I mean, how do you feel about AI musicians?
You know, it's a complex issue because for 40 years we have had drum machines. How do I feel about a legitimate artist using a drum machine instead of a live drummer? I have always hated it.
Same here.
Because it sounds fake. It doesn't sound legit. It sounds, and you know, a lot of music that's currently out, and as much as I love Lady Gaga, a lot of her stuff is very, very processed, and a lot of it doesn't require, like on her newest album, there is a live drummer on one track. And so how do you, and it doesn't feel real, if that makes any sense. Yeah,
but at least with the drum machine, someone was programming that, right? With the pseudo stuff, it's just it's all so generic at the stage that it's at now,
right?
Where it's basically learned from all these different songs from different musicians, and it spits out the most generic version. And ChatGPT, if you try to prompt a script, it will give you the worst version of your idea. Right. So if you're taking that as a finished product, it is terrible, I promise, because I've tried. And to me, it's missing the quirks and the interesting things that a person brings to it, because a person has their own peculiarities, right?
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not the greatest example to talk about the cutting edge of music anyway. My daughter has come to me before and said, "You'll like this band. They play instruments," because, because that's sort of my bar for modern music, is
It
they
really
play
is for me too.
instruments.
Yeah.
Or someone, even if it's not the main people.
Right.
Mhm.
There was a episode of Voyager where the doctor, you remember he wrote that novel. He wrote a
Mhm.
novel. I mean, he wrote a novel, Photons Be Free. And there's a whole episode of Voyager where the doctor goes to court, because, you know, Star Trek loves court. And the doctor had written a holo novel that cast the Voyager crew in a bad light. And it basically made it seem like he was almost a slave to the crew. And everybody told him how much he hurt their feelings. And so then he sued to pull his novel. But the guy on Earth who had been his agent, ironically, who had been promoting the doctor's creative work, said, "You're just an AI. You don't have any rights. So what you gave me, I get to publish." And the doctor's like, "Well, wait a minute. You said I was a great writer." And he's like, "Yeah, but you're not real." And I thought it was very interesting that simultaneously the guy was promoting the doctor's book, but then saying that the doctor wasn't real. And I was thinking about what you guys were saying about music and holograms and novels in the future. I don't think there's any way we get away from the fact that our great grandchildren will be enjoying AI entertainment, and they may not even be thinking about it.
They won't even realize it. So there's so many kids that don't understand, that they can't hear the difference.
That's true. And I honestly think that the general public doesn't think about this at all.
I can see that.
And the reason that these 2 songs that we're talking about have been, you know, at least reasonably successful, and because they are so generic, is because they're hitting all the things that people look for. Whether it's generated by a human or not, I don't think anybody knows or cares.
Well, also, it's doing that, and it's using the AI buzzword, which is just someone sees something about AI song doing well, and it just like explodes.
Yeah, but right now it's sort of they're trying to cram AI into everything. That bubble, I think, will burst. For me, it's kind of like mustard, where I like mustard a lot if it's on like a Chicago hot dog or a bologna sandwich.
Thin layer.
But if you're putting it on ice cream and cereal, it's like, quit with the freaking mustard. And right now, AI, I think there are some legitimate uses for it. I don't need it in every freaking thing that I do all day long. And that's sort of where it's at the moment, because like you said, Veronica, it's sort of the buzzword right now. But I think that there will always be, whether the general public or not, I think there will always be an audience and at least a percentage of the audience that values human created art and a real tactile experience. And we see that in Star Trek as well, as much as computers and holodecks and things are a part of their lives, especially on next gen. Like that, it's a culture that very much seems to value like live performances and just regular people knowing how to be in a play and learn an instrument and do little concerts for their friends and you know what I mean? Like,
because that's a novelty right now. The AI is a novelty to everyone,
right? But I think that beyond it just being a novelty, I think that they do seem to value like knowing how to play the trombone and being in a play with your friends and putting on productions like they do. There does seem to be a value for that in the Star Trek universe still, and it's still a place for it.
Right. And taking dance lessons in Crusher's dance studio.
Yeah. And people who aren't professionals at it, just regular people who do value learning and performing arts.
Veronica, Veronica said something very interesting that I think may be our future if we're not careful, which is Veronica just said that in the future, maybe doing stuff manually by hand together is the novelty, and AI doing it for you is the norm. How much science fiction have we seen across the decades where people end up like, Wall-E or the Telosians, or the Jetsons? I'll never forget the Jetsons, when there was an episode of the Jetsons where George Jetson said, "Man, these 2-day work weeks are killing me." And all he did was push a button. He literally pushed a button. 2-day work weeks are killing him. And I think it's because here's the thing, because it's funny because Star Trek in the 60s, the anti-machine taking over from man argument was eminently convincing, and everybody agreed with it. You know, like there's the episode again, Back to the Ultimate Computer, when Spock said computers may be better at running ships, but not desirable. Ships run on loyalty. But if we get to the point in 300 years, especially when we have quantum computing, where a computer and AI can actually do a whole lot of things better than we can, or at least as well as we can, I kind of wonder if it will have to be where you will have to make a conscious effort to keep humans in the equation. Like you said, It's like the McDonald's formula. I don't love McDonald's because McDonald's tastes like McDonald's, but a lot of people love McDonald's because it's consistent. It's consistent. I like stuff that tastes unique. So I can see in the future where you order a meal and it's fine. It's consistently good. You watch a TV program, or Alan, you listen to music, it's fine. Why? Because the AI that created it was programmed to hit the 20 top things that humans like.
Right.
And you might get rid of the other 30 that we don't even know we like. And maybe people will have to make a conscious effort to say, this is not AI.
Well, I will say that AI has currently had some success with generating successful, popular songs. I have yet to hear it compose a symphony or create a prog rock masterpiece.
But I bet in 300 years, it can do pop level music, and maybe
it will not take 300 years.
Yeah.
It's going much faster than
we'll reconvene in 300 years to find out.
And given what Veronica said, what I can see is humans changing what we demand and accept because of it. Like, in the future, we're happy with McDonald's. I mean, I know I'm using that crazy example, but I still like to eat mom and pop restaurants because I like uniqueness. But when I was growing up, we didn't eat McDonald's a lot because it was fine. We would eat these little local places and you wanted that character. But in the future, I could see people saying, whatever, it's fine. And you have to, it's like the episode of TNG where Riker was making the supposed omelets, but it was a scrambled egg. And, and they said, and Data said, you do realize the replicator can make that for you. And then Data and Pulaski were saying, yeah, but that gets rid of the entire human experience. Both now, manually doing it and sitting together.
To be fair to Riker, there have been times when I was set out to make an omelet and had to pivot into scrambled eggs.
Sometimes it's just not going to hold together.
You change the plan,
Yeah. So
there is. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
There is a scene in Doctor Who, City of Death, 1979, where they're going to the Louvre, and the Doctor wants to show Romana the Mona Lisa, and she's like, couldn't understand the concept of people painting because at least on Gallifrey, computers can draw.
Yeah.
So it was so interesting. And he's like, computers, you talk about computer in the middle of Paris when there's pictures like the Mona Lisa. And it's a short scene, but it's so interesting that it almost presages the exact discussion that's being had right now of AI art versus human art. And that was 1979.
Right. I mean, similarly, Samuel T. Cogley had a very similar philosophy regarding books and computers. He didn't want the computer to spit him out an answer. He wanted his dusty old books.
That's right.
And I mean, presumably, so because you're having to then dig through and find your answers.
Right. Okay. Let me get some comments here. Okay. Mark says, I have a Kindle Unlimited. I cannot count how many books I have abandoned when I realized the book was written by AI.
Yep.
Okay, I'm stunned. I didn't know that. I did not know that.
So many.
Wayne says, I just had the 1,000 monkey scenario flash through my mind.
So did I, Wayne. I can't believe we thought the same thing.
That's so funny. He also says, I pretty much use Alan's method for using software for editing and grammar. Sometimes what the computer suggests is light years better than my original idea. And then he also says, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interject, but I will, I'll have if I try to use the grammar things, I'll end up arguing with it. Like, no, I'm sticking with what I said.
Exactly. He says, speaking of drum machines, in the last few albums that Stevie Wonder put out had some pretty tasty rhythms despite them sounding artificial. I think that was attributed to his years of experience. And I mean, I'm not saying that you should never use a drum machine. There are plenty of artists who have used drum machines in very creative ways, but there's also ones that use it to not have to pay a drummer. I know that specifically.
And I think also, I'm sorry, go ahead, Keith.
Yeah, Wayne and Charles, y'all said something very interesting. And I think that's what will happen for future generations. Wayne said that he's used suggestions from AI, as Alan has, and in the music. I think the difference is, given how we all came up, we still question it and we use it as a suggestion. Give us 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 generations, they may not question it. They would probably say, hey, computer, write me a sonnet, and they throw it out there and they're done.
The alpha generation is not going to question it.
That's scary.
So You bring up a very good point, Keith. Even though I said that AI did not write the 2 books that I'm about to publish, I did use AI in one instance very specifically, and that was in my chapter on the Shakespeare Code. I wanted to write it as a sonnet.
Okay.
And I kept trying to come up with a sonnet, the Doctor Who themed sonnet that sort of summarized the episode, and I just could not do it. And I asked ChatGPT to come up with one, and I did it about 15 times because it was completely different every single time.
Wow.
And I eventually I took what it gave me and I rewrote it. So what is in the book is actually mine, but I used it to kind of prompt me on how to do it.
Wow.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I've
one
done it
last
before where I've tried to use ChatGPT to write a script, and so I'll describe it, and then end up being like, no, not like that, like this. No, not like that, like this. No, not like that. And then I wind up arguing with it, and then just doing it myself. But it gets my wheels turning. But I these days I just avoid it because I just don't really care for it.
Yeah. And one last comment from Mark, which is really interesting. Data played the violin by emulating 4 different violinists. Picard told him he had just created his own style.
Yeah, that was
interesting.
That was it. Yeah, the Doctor and Voyager, the same thing. There was with the Doctor and Voyager, there was the same thing. They got to a point where there was a conversation with the Doctor a couple times, which was, where are you just synthesizing and recreating what you've been programmed? And then where does that become creativity? And, where is that?
The difference there for me is they have all of this knowledge. Data in that specific instance specifically took these 4 specific violinists to create what he was trying to create. And that is what humans do. The way that large language models are currently, they literally take everything and just smush everything together and
But I would say too that Data, although he is doing similar to what like a ChatGPT would do, like or Suno, but Data does have life experiences.
He has sentience,
right? Yes. Like and sentience, yes, but also, I mean, we're encouraged to look at Data and the Doctor as people on Star Trek. You know, like we're on in Measure of the Man, we're not on Remic's side, we're on Data's side, right?
Yeah.
But also, I mean, Data is out in the world doing things and living, right? And we don't have, life forms that are doing that at this point.
Right.
Yet. I tend to think, I was thinking about that. I tend to think as the things we talked about practical, I think in the future, not only would it be likely, I think it's impossible for a Star Trek future not to use AI for things like piloting, warp engines, transporters, replicators, things that humans just can't think. Medicine. I can't see you not have AI in medicine in the future.
There's some very good uses for AI in medicine along with humans, especially like looking at like x-rays or radiographs or images, and they can find little things and they'd be like, look at this thing, and the human can take a closer look at it and be like, oh yeah, okay, I couldn't see that. Now that you pointed it out, I can see that that's an issue.
Yeah, I remember in the original series when McCoy had to operate on Sarek, Spock's father, he said, I've reviewed I got to paraphrase. He said, I reviewed all the records. I know where everything is, but that's different from actual surgery. He'd never operated on a Vulcan before. And I've always wondered, if you're a doctor in the future, and this is always one of those things that I've always been fascinated about, how much knowledge can a human cram into their head? How much can a doctor know in the future when you've got like 100 different types of aliens? You'd have to turn to AI for that. You would have to. There's no way around it.
Or another specialist. Mbanga was on the original Enterprise, and he interned on Vulcan. You wouldn't necessarily have Dr. McCoy, who's an expert on every life form, right? Especially in Star Trek 6, where he didn't know Klingon anatomy. But I think Star Trek very frequently will take the side of, we can't trust the computer with this.
Right.
Whether it be making a meal or flying the ship, or because I think Star Trek has always valued that human intuition, unless it's talking about one of the main characters that's an artificial life form. You know what I mean? And then it does the other way, where we're supposed to look at like the guy who doesn't trust Data to be in command of the ship as the bad guy, and Data's the good guy, right? But I think all the way back to the original series and even up to now, I think Star Trek very frequently will take the position of like, we got to trust the human intuition in this situation because it's life or death, and we got to trust our instincts, right?
And you know what, Charles, I was thinking about that, and given what you said, here's what I think what would have to happen in the Star Trek future. I think we as humans would have to make conscious efforts to keep inserting the human condition, the human equation into stuff. Because if we don't, think we'd be almost, I think it'd almost be impossible 300-400 years from now not to be kind of run by AI and not even realize it. Again, I am not talking Skynet, Nomad, Colossus. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about AI doing your creativity, Alan, your music, your food, and you don't even think about it because it's convenient. And I think, Charles, what you said is very interesting. Star Trek, they always consciously push the computer back. You know what I mean? They like, that's why like every Star Trek captain always lives in like a log cabin and rides horses and, you know, doesn't have an obvious computer in their home, because those people seem to value the human condition, being human, even when they acknowledge that computers may be better at stuff. I think we'll have to consciously do that. Yeah,
you have to disconnect.
Yeah.
At some point and in some way. And that's how these captains are doing that. One last comment from Wayne. He says, Keith, what you guys just described, the Doctor and Data did sounded like Colossus's thought process, except they did it without plotting to dominate humanity.
That's very true. And one last thing, real quick, I thought about that when we talk about AI. One of the things Alan said, and Charles, you said over and over, is humans. What did they say about the data and the measure of man? The purpose of the enterprise is to seek out new life. Well, there it sits. I think one of the things we're going to find out, unless we can do like Dr. Daystrom and imprint our engrams on the AI so that it is human, then we may find that AI in the future is truly alien. It may think not violent. It may not. Again, I'm not worried about AI coming awake when they say humans suck, I'm going to take over the earth. I'm not worried about that. But what about an AI that's truly alien? Truly alien? What do we do with it?
I don't think that's possible, because the base programming would be human processes.
Unless, well, here we go. See, now, unless it becomes self-aware.
Programming and evolves.
Exactly, Alan. I agree.
So it could evolve beyond its original parameters.
I agree, because I think billions and billions. Well, I agree, Alan, because I think billions and billions of nodes around the world running 24/7, talking and doing weird stuff. I think one day you come in and go, "What just happened in that figurative test tube?" I think that's what scares me more than anything else is like AI that's alien. And then that's not a question of not even is it alive, but is it human? And do we want that kind of AI loose in our society? Because it may think completely differently than us. That could be a problem.
Well, that flew by, guys.
Boy, did it ever. I know,
we do like 2 more full episodes.
Yeah, I think, and we didn't even touch on the fact that Star Trek has sort of an egalitarian future, and our current AI is being run by tech bros pushing far-right extremist agendas.
Very good point.
But I don't want to open that can of worms right now.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Star Trek is all about what can things do for everyone.
Right, 100%. Yes. All right. Well, Alan, where can people find more of you?
CosmicCreative.com. KOZMIC creative.com.
And how about you, Keith?
On Facebook, primarily the ESO Network Facebook groups, where I always rage against AI there.
And how about us, Veronica?
Nerdy.com.
That's right. And if you're in the Atlanta area, come see us at Conjuration this weekend. Or on December 4th here in Atlanta, we'll be doing an adult performance at Jesus' birthday party with strippers. That's going to be adult only at Lore here in Atlanta. And on the December 13th at the Holiday Puck and Puppet Show. And where else do people find us?
Monkeying Around, a podcast about the monkeys.
Yep, where we've put a big emphasis on our live YouTube shows. And we just recently, this past week, talked to Glenn Gretland, the CEO of 7A Records, which is doing a new Davy Jones release. So check out Monkeying Around, particularly on YouTube, and give us a subscribe, because that helps out a lot.
Before Veronica gives us the goodbye, Charles, what you just said about Jesus' birthday with strippers, the way I was raised, I know you were too. My mama said, "Boy, you inviting some lightning for that one."
I'm going to be disappointing a lot of ancestors on December 4th. All right, Veronica, you got a closing for us this week?
Oh, there is a Landrew.
Oh my God.
Where? I made Landrew explode. That was,
okay.
That was awesome.
Well, join us Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern. We go live talking about Star Trek, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Bye.